The hotel charge appeared on my phone at 3:47 a.m. like a digital slap across the face. $900 at the Grand Meridian, plus another $300 at Chez Laurent. I stared at the glowing screen in our king-sized bed, listening to my wife Monique's peaceful breathing beside me, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Critical meeting with Dom, she'd said yesterday morning, kissing my cheek with her usual practiced affection. Might run late. Don't wait up. I'm Julian Everett, 40 years old, senior investment banker at Hartwell & Associates. I've spent 2 decades reading between the lines of financial statements, spotting inconsistencies that others miss. The skill translates well to marriage, apparently. Monique stirred beside me, her auburn hair spilling across the Egyptian cotton pillowcase. Even in sleep, she looked polished, professional. 37 years old and still turning heads at every charity gala and business dinner. She'd built her PR firm from nothing, and I'd admired that drive when we met 5 years ago. Now I wondered what else she'd built from nothing. I slipped out of bed and padded to my home office, the hardwood floor cold against my bare feet. Unlike the rest of our house with its sleek glass and steel aesthetic that Monique preferred, my office remained stubbornly old-fashioned. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with financial texts and market analysis books. A hidden safe behind a first-edition copy of The Intelligent Investor. The laptop screen cast blue light across my face as I logged into our joint account. The charges were there in black and white. Grand Meridian Hotel, executive suite, 1 night. Chez Laurent, dinner for 2, wine pairing included. I picked up my phone and dialed the hotel. Grand Meridian, this is Kevin speaking. How may I help you? Hi, Kevin. This is Julian Everett. I'm looking at a charge on my card from yesterday, and I want to confirm the details. A pause. Of course, sir. Let me pull that up. Yes, Mrs. Everett checked in around 2 p.m. with, His voice grew uncertain. With whom, Kevin? Mr. Dominic Caro, sir. They requested champagne service and... Is there a problem with the charge? No problem at all. Thank you, Kevin. I hung up and leaned back in my chair. Dominic Caro. Dom. Monique's boss, the founding partner of Caro Communications, where my wife served as senior vice president. Married to Vanessa Caro for 15 years, 2 kids in private school. The pieces clicked together with the satisfying precision of a well-balanced portfolio. The late nights. The new lingerie I'd glimpsed in her dresser drawer. The way she'd started mentioning Dom's name more frequently, always with that slight smile. Julian? Monique's voice drifted from the bedroom. Are you okay? I heard you get up. Just checking some overnight market activity, I called back. Go back to sleep. But I wasn't going back to sleep. I was going to make a phone call. Vanessa Caro answered on the 3rd ring, her voice crisp despite the early hour. Julian, is everything all right? Hi, Vanessa. Sorry to wake you, but I thought you should see something. I attached screenshots of the hotel and restaurant charges to a text message, along with a single line. Your husband and my wife had a productive meeting yesterday. Her response came back within 30 seconds. Thank you. We should talk soon. I smiled in the darkness of my office. Sometimes the best revenge starts with simple honesty. 3 days later, I sat across from my attorney, Rebecca Martinez, in her downtown office overlooking the harbor. Rebecca was sharp, ruthless, and expensive. Exactly what I needed. You want to freeze the joint accounts? She asked, reviewing the documents I'd brought. All of them. Credit cards, savings, investment accounts, everything. Julian, this is nuclear. You sure you want to go this route? I slid a manila folder across her desk. Take a look. Rebecca opened the folder and whistled softly. Bank statements, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a receipt from Victoria's Secret that I'd found in Monique's purse. But the real prize was at the bottom of the stack. How did you get these text messages? Monique never changed her iCloud password. Everything backs up automatically. I leaned forward. Look at the dates, Rebecca. They've been planning this for months. The messages painted a clear picture. Monique and Dom weren't just having an affair. They were planning to steal my biggest client, Harrison Industries. Dom's company would handle their PR, Monique would facilitate the transition, and they'd split a commission worth nearly $2 million. This is corporate espionage, Rebecca said. This is my wife screwing me in every way possible, I replied. Can you freeze the accounts? I can have papers filed within the hour. I stood up and shook her hand. Do it. That afternoon, I drove to Marcus Bell's apartment across town. Marcus had been my roommate in college and remained my closest friend. He worked in IT security, which made him very useful for certain situations. You look like hell, he said, opening the door with a beer in his hand. Feel worse. Can you help me with something? Marcus listened while I explained the situation. He didn't seem surprised. I never liked her, he said finally. Too polished, like a politician. Can you help or not? What do you need? I handed him Monique's old iPhone, the one she'd replaced last month but kept in her desk drawer. I need to know what she deleted. Marcus grinned. Now we're talking. 2 hours later, we had everything. Deleted photos, recovered text messages, even location data showing exactly when Monique had been at Dom's penthouse apartment. The digital trail was damning and complete. Your wife is an idiot, Marcus said, scrolling through the recovered files. She kept everything. Look at this. He showed me a photo of Dom and Monique in bed together, her engagement ring clearly visible on her finger. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 weeks ago, right after she'd told me she was working late on the Henderson account. There's more, Marcus said. Look at these messages between her and someone named Tasha. Tasha Williams, Monique's best friend and fellow PR executive. The messages were brutal in their honesty. Monique, Julian has no idea. He's so focused on his precious numbers, he can't see what's right in front of him. Tasha, what if he finds out? Monique, then I take half of everything and start over. Win-win. Tasha, you're terrible. I love it. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated destruction. What are you going to do? Marcus asked. I smiled, and apparently it wasn't a pleasant expression because Marcus actually took a step back. I'm going to teach them about consequences. That evening, I arrived home to find Monique in the kitchen, furiously talking on her phone. She looked up when I walked in, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Fear. I have to go, she said into the phone. Julian's here. She hung up and turned to face me, her composure slipping for just a moment before snapping back into place. We need to talk, she said. Do we? I opened the refrigerator and pulled out a beer, taking my time. About what? My credit card was declined today. At lunch. It was embarrassing. Huh? That's weird. I took a long sip of beer. Maybe you should call the bank. I did call the bank, Julian. They said you froze our accounts. I nodded slowly. I did. Why would you do that? I set down my beer and looked at her directly. Because you're sleeping with your boss and planning to steal my clients. The mask finally slipped. Monique's face went white, then red, then white again. I don't know what you're talking about. Grand Meridian Hotel, Chez Laurent, Dom Caro. Should I continue? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I could prove. It's not what you think, she said finally. It's exactly what I think. The only question now is what you're going to do about it. Monique straightened her shoulders, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, confident, determined, unafraid. I want a divorce, she said. I smiled. Good, because you're getting one. The next morning, I drove to Caro Communications. The building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the business district, all sharp angles and expensive views. I parked in the visitor lot and walked through the lobby like I owned the place. Dom's office was on the 15th floor, behind frosted glass doors with his name etched in gold letters. His secretary, a nervous young man named Peter, tried to stop me. Mr. Everett, you can't just... It's fine, Peter, I said, walking past him. Dom's expecting me. I opened the door without knocking. Dom was behind his desk, talking on the phone. He looked up, saw me, and his face went pale. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. Dominic Caro was 45, tall and lean with silver hair and expensive suits. He looked like a man who'd never been told no in his life. That was about to change. Julian, he said, standing up, this is unexpected. Is it? I closed the door behind me and took a seat in one of his leather chairs. I thought we should have a conversation about my wife. Dom's jaw tightened. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, text messages, photos. Should I continue? He sat back down heavily. Look, Julian, I can explain. No need. I understand completely. You're screwing my wife and planning to steal my clients. It's actually quite simple. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Dom. You're going to end things with Monique immediately. You're going to abandon any plans involving Harrison Industries, and you're going to pray that your wife is more forgiving than I am. Dom's face flushed red. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. I stood up and walked to his desk. Because if you don't do exactly what I just said, I'm going to destroy your life. You think you can intimidate me? I've been in this business for 20 years. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the recovered photos. Dom and Monique in bed, both clearly identifiable. Your wife, your kids, your business partners, your clients, they're all going to see this, along with the text messages about stealing my accounts and the detailed financial records of every hotel room you've charged to your company credit card. Dom stared at the photo, his face going from red to white. You have 24 hours, I said, pocketing my phone. After that, everyone you know gets to see what kind of man you really are. I walked to the door, then paused and looked back. Oh, and Dom? Stay away from my wife. She's about to have enough problems without you adding to them. I left him sitting behind his desk, staring at nothing. The elevator ride down gave me time to think about my next move. Monique would be at work by now, probably trying to figure out damage control. Her PR firm, Darrow and Associates, was only 6 blocks away. I decided to walk. The autumn air was crisp, and the city was alive with morning energy. Business people hurried past with coffee and phones, everyone focused on their own small dramas. I wondered how many of them were dealing with cheating spouses and stolen clients. Darrow and Associates occupied 3 floors of a converted warehouse in the Arts District. Monique had always loved the open floor plan, the exposed brick walls, the sense of creative energy. I'd attended enough office parties to know the layout. I walked in like I belonged there. The receptionist, a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings, looked up from her computer. Hi, I'm Julian Everett. I'm here to see my wife. Oh, Mr. Everett? Monique's in the conference room with the Henderson team. Should I? No need. I'll find her. I walked through the open workspace, past designers hunched over computers and account executives talking rapidly into headsets. A few people looked up and waved. I'd been to enough company functions that most of them knew me. The conference room was glass-walled, giving everyone a perfect view of what happened next. Monique was standing at the head of a long table, presenting to 6 people in expensive suits. She looked confident, professional, completely in control. She was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. I opened the door and walked in. Sorry to interrupt, I said. Monique, we need to talk. She turned, and I saw the exact moment she realized this wasn't going to be a private conversation. 6 pairs of eyes were watching us through the glass walls. Half the office was pretending not to stare. Julian, I'm in a meeting. I know, with the Henderson account team. I smiled at the 6 people around the table. Hi, everyone. I'm Julian, Monique's husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband. The silence in the room was deafening. Julian, please. Did you know, I continued, addressing the Henderson team, that my wife has been sharing confidential client information with Caro Communications? It's fascinating from a business ethics standpoint. One of the Henderson executives, a woman in her 50s, leaned forward. What exactly are you saying? I pulled out a folder and set it on the conference table. Text messages, financial records, hotel receipts. Your account was going to be transferred to Dom Caro's firm, with Monique facilitating the move in exchange for a $2 million commission. The woman opened the folder and began reading. Her expression grew colder with each page. Monique, she said finally, is this true? Monique looked around the room like a trapped animal. Through the glass walls, I could see the entire office watching our drama unfold. I can explain, she said. No, the Henderson executive said, standing up. You can't. She gathered her papers and walked out, followed by the rest of her team. Within minutes, the conference room was empty except for Monique and me. You bastard, she whispered. I'm the bastard? That's interesting. I picked up my folder. By the way, Dom's ending things with you. Apparently his wife is less understanding than I am. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and Monique? You might want to start looking for a new job. I have a feeling the Henderson account won't be the only one you lose today. I left her standing in the glass conference room, surrounded by her co-workers' stares, and walked out of the building with a spring in my step. That evening, Marcus and I sat at the Copper Parrot, a bar downtown that served excellent whiskey and minded its own business. We'd claimed a corner booth where we could watch the room and talk without being overheard. You really did it, Marcus said, raising his glass. You actually blew up her entire life in one day. The day's not over yet, I replied. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at my place. Dom. I showed the message to Marcus. Looks like Dom wants to negotiate. You going? Absolutely. Want to come along? Wouldn't miss it. Dom's penthouse apartment was in the Meridian Tower, 40 floors above the city with views of the harbor and mountains beyond. The kind of place that cost more per month than most people made in a year. The doorman called up, and we were directed to the private elevator that opened directly into Dom's foyer. The apartment was everything I'd expected. Modern art, Italian leather furniture, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a restaurant. Dom was waiting for us with a glass of scotch in his hand. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, trying to look casual. It didn't work. Julian, and you brought a friend. Marcus Bell, I said, my witness. Dom's jaw tightened. Witness to what? Whatever you're about to say or do. I looked around the apartment. Nice place. I'm guessing the mortgage alone runs about $15,000 a month. What do you want? Nothing. You called me, remember? Dom walked to his bar and poured himself another drink. His hands were shaking slightly. This has gone far enough, he said. You've made your point. Have I? What point was that? You're angry, I get it. But destroying both our lives isn't going to fix anything. I sat down on his expensive sofa and gestured for Marcus to do the same. Tell me about your wife, Dom. What? Vanessa. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids. How do you think she's handling the news about your affair? Dom's face went white. You didn't. I pulled out my phone and showed him a text conversation with Vanessa Caro. Screenshots of hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and several of the more explicit photos I'd recovered from Monique's phone. "She's very understanding," I said. "Asked me to thank you for finally giving her grounds for divorce." Dom stared at the phone, then suddenly lunged forward and tried to grab it. I was ready for him. I stood up quickly, letting him stumble past me into the coffee table. "Careful, Dom. That table probably cost more than most people's cars." He scrambled to his feet, his face red with rage. "You snake!" "Now that's not very professional language," Marcus said from his spot on the sofa. Dom turned to face us both, and I could see him calculating his options. He was bigger than me, but there were two of us, and he was drunk and panicked. "What do you want?" he asked again. "I want you to understand something," I said. "You thought you could take my wife, steal my clients, and destroy my life. You thought I was just some boring banker who wouldn't fight back." I walked closer to him, close enough to smell the alcohol on his breath. "You were wrong." Dom swung at me. I saw it coming from a mile away and ducked easily. His fist went over my head and he spun around, off balance. I grabbed his wrist and twisted, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make him drop to one knee. "Like I said," I whispered in his ear, "you were wrong." I let go and stepped back. Dom stayed on his knees, breathing hard. "Your wife is filing for divorce tomorrow," I continued. "She's freezing your accounts, taking the kids, and keeping the house. Your business partners are going to receive a very interesting package of documents showing how you've been using company resources for personal entertainment. And every client you've ever had is going to learn exactly what kind of man they've been trusting with their reputation." I walked to his expensive sound system and picked up a crystal sculpture from the shelf above it, some modern art piece that probably cost thousands. "Oops," I said, and let it slip from my fingers. The sculpture hit the hardwood floor and exploded into 1,000 pieces. "Send me a bill," I said. Marcus and I walked to the elevator, leaving Dom kneeling among the crystal shards. "That felt good," Marcus said as the elevator descended. "It felt necessary," I replied, but I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Monique. I made coffee, read the newspaper, and checked my stock portfolio before calling her back. "Julian, thank God. We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Not on the phone. Meet me at the office." "Your office or mine?" "Mine. Please, Julian. It's important." I drove across town to Darrow and Associates, curious about what Monique thought she could possibly say to fix this situation. The parking lot was nearly empty, which was unusual for a Thursday morning. I found Monique in her corner office, surrounded by boxes. She was packing her personal items, photos, awards, the small cactus I'd given her as a joke on our first anniversary. "They fired me," she said without looking up. I'm shocked. The Henderson account pulled out. So did Morrison Industries and Pacific Trust. 3 of our biggest clients, gone in 24 hours. She finally looked at me, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. Real tears, not the calculated kind she used during arguments. "I built this company," she said. 7 years of my life. "You destroyed it yourself, Monique. I just helped people see the truth." She stood up and walked to her window overlooking the city. "What happens now? Now you live with the consequences of your choices. And us? Is there any chance?" "No." The word hung in the air between us like a blade. "I loved you," she said quietly. "No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. The house, the cars, the lifestyle. You loved having a successful husband to show off at parties." I walked to her desk and picked up a framed photo of us from our wedding day. We looked happy, hopeful, like we believed in forever. "But you never loved me," I continued. "Because if you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did." I set the photo back down and turned to leave. "Julian, wait." I stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know you are. You're sorry you got caught." I left her in her empty office, surrounded by the wreckage of her career. That afternoon, I met with Rebecca Martinez to finalize the divorce papers. The prenup Monique had insisted on signing was ironclad. She'd get nothing except her personal belongings and whatever was in her individual accounts. She could fight it, Rebecca warned. With what money? She's unemployed, and her boyfriend's about to lose everything in his own divorce. Fair point. I signed the papers and walked out of Rebecca's office feeling lighter than I had in months. It was over. Monique, Dom, the lies, the betrayal, all of it was finished. But as I reached my car, my phone rang. Unknown number. Julian Everett. Mr. Everett, this is Vanessa Caro. We should meet. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Do you know the Copper Parrot? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Vanessa Caro was already waiting when I arrived, sitting in the same corner booth Marcus and I had occupied the night before. She was elegant in the way that old money always is, understated jewelry, perfect posture, clothes that whispered rather than shouted their expense. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. Thank you for the information about Dom and Monique. It was very helpful. She smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. I've been tracking my husband's affairs for years. He's not as careful as he thinks he is. Affairs? Plural? Oh, yes. Monique was just the latest. There was a yoga instructor last year, a client's daughter before that, his secretary before her. She sipped her martini. I've been building a file. Why didn't you divorce him years ago? I was waiting for the right moment, the right leverage. She opened her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Your wife and my husband made a critical error. She slid the envelope across the table. I opened it and found documents I'd never seen before. Emails between Dom and Monique discussing not just stealing my clients, but setting me up for corporate espionage charges. They were going to frame you, Vanessa said. Make it look like you were selling client information to competitors. Dom had already planted some evidence in your office computer system. I stared at the emails, feeling ice water in my veins. This would have destroyed my career. And landed you in federal prison. Corporate espionage carries a 20-year sentence. Why are you showing me this? Vanessa's smile turned genuinely warm. Because you helped me finish them both. Dom's company is being investigated by the SEC as we speak. The evidence you provided, combined with what I've been collecting, paints a very clear picture of corporate fraud. She raised her martini glass. To justice, Mr. Everett. I clinched my beer against her glass. To justice. There's one more thing, she said. Tomorrow night, Dom and Monique are supposed to attend the Charity Foundation Gala at the Grand Meridian. It's the social event of the season. Everyone who matters will be there. So I thought you might like to make a final statement. I looked at this elegant, dangerous woman and realized I'd been playing checkers while she'd been playing chess. What did you have in mind? The Charity Foundation Gala was exactly what I'd expected. 500 of the city's most important people dressed in expensive clothes, drinking expensive wine, and pretending to care about expensive causes. The Grand Meridian's ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the soft glow of money. I stood at the bar, nursing a whiskey and watching the crowd. Marcus was somewhere in the room, playing his part. Vanessa Caro was at the head table, looking regal in midnight blue silk. And there, near the auction display, were Dom and Monique. They looked terrible. Dom's usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his tuxedo looked like he'd slept in it. Monique wore a red dress I'd never seen before, probably borrowed, since her credit cards were still frozen. They were trying to work the room, attempting to control the damage to their reputations. But I could see people turning away from them, conversations ending when they approached. Word travels fast in social circles. I finished my drink and walked toward them. Dom, Monique, what a surprise to see you here. They turned, and I saw fear flash across both their faces. Julian, Dom said carefully. I didn't know you were coming. Wouldn't miss it. This is where it all started, isn't it? The Grand Meridian? Monique grabbed Dom's arm. We should go. So soon? But the evening's just getting started. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. I thought people might be interested in seeing some pictures from your last visit here. Dom stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. You son of a… Careful, Dom. We're in public. But Dom was past caring about public appearances. He lunged at me, trying to grab my phone. I sidestepped easily, and he stumbled into a waiter carrying champagne glasses. The crash was spectacular. Crystal shattered, champagne flew everywhere, and suddenly the entire ballroom was staring at us. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice so everyone could hear, I'd like to share something with you about corporate ethics and personal responsibility. Dom scrambled to his feet, his tuxedo soaked with champagne. Shut up, Julian, just shut up. This man, I continued, pointing at Dom, has been embezzling from his clients, defrauding his business partners, and destroying families for his own profit. The crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. And this woman, I pointed at Monique, who looked like she wanted to disappear, helped him do it while stealing from her own husband. That's enough, Dom shouted and swung at me again. This time I was ready. I caught his wrist, twisted it behind his back, and forced him to his knees in front of 500 witnesses. The truth is enough, Dom. Finally. I let him go and stepped back. Dom stayed on his knees, breathing hard, surrounded by broken glass and spilled champagne. The FBI will be very interested in your business practices, I said, and the IRS will want to discuss those offshore accounts you thought nobody knew about. I turned to address the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disturbance, but sometimes the truth needs to be heard. The room erupted in whispers and shocked conversations. I saw phones coming out, people taking pictures and videos. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. Monique tried to help Dom to his feet, but he shoved her away. This is your fault, he snarled at her. All of it. My fault? You're the one who got caught. You're the one who left evidence everywhere. They turned on each other like wounded animals, their voices rising above the crowd's murmur. Years of lies and betrayal spilled out in front of everyone who mattered in their world. I walked away and found Vanessa at the head table. Nicely done, she said. It's not over yet. As if on cue, hotel security arrived, followed by two men in dark suits who looked very much like federal agents. They walked straight to Dom and Monique, who were still arguing near the broken glass. Dominic Caro, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that carried across the silent ballroom. Monique Darrow, you're also under arrest as an accessory to fraud and conspiracy. More handcuffs, more silence. They were led out through the ballroom, past 500 witnesses, past the cameras and phones and shocked faces of everyone they'd ever tried to impress. I stood at the bar and ordered another whiskey. Rough night? The bartender asked. Actually, I said, it's been perfect. Marcus appeared beside me, grinning. Did you see their faces when the FBI showed up? Priceless. So what now? I looked around the ballroom, at the crowd still buzzing with excitement, at the broken glass being swept up, at the empty spaces where Dom and Monique had been standing just minutes before. Now I go home to my house, sleep in my bed, and wake up tomorrow to a life without liars. I finished my drink and set the glass on the bar. Sometimes, I said, the meeting gets canceled, and sometimes the whole damn future does. Marcus and I walked out of the Grand Meridian together, leaving the wreckage of Dom and Monique's lives behind us. The night air was crisp and clean, full of possibilities. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca Martinez. Divorce finalized. You're free. I smiled and deleted the message. I was indeed free, free from lies, free from betrayal, free from people who thought they could use and discard me. The city stretched out before us, bright with lights and promise. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new challenges, new chances to build something real. But tonight, justice was enough.